What's up? This is David, and today I want to show you how to make more profit from your high-ticket coaching business by thinking like an engineer. Okay, so most of the time, we've put self-limitations on the way that we think and the way we go about our business. Okay, and I don't want you to take any kind of business model or any kind of sales model or really anything like any technique, or don't take anything dogmatically. You don't take anything dogmatically. Please have an open mind and stay an open mind. Okay, think about things critically. Even if I say it, right, think about it critically. Okay, and sometimes here's the ironic thing. Sometimes a beginner would do better, would do better at sales or conversions and marketing, whatever, because a pro has too many rules that stifle us. Right, like such things like putting the price on the page, like revealing the price, or you can only sell high ticket with a call. We have these preconceived notions, and it sets these self limitations to not just unlocking creativity, but then also unlocking more profits in our business. Okay, so marketing has become this big telephone game. It's that old game. When we played as kids, where we have a message on one side, and then the original message gets passed down to another person, gets passed down to another person, it gets passed down to another person, and by the end, it's a totally different message from the original message, right? So these messages have been passed down from one guru to another, and then we get the message at the end, and then we just follow it, right? We just follow it without even questioning it. Or it's become this trendy little thing, oh, I heard this is working now. And then we go on that bandwagon without even questioning it, okay, without thinking from first principles of psychology and marketing and conversions. So I want us to get us to think like engineers. Okay, think of business as an engineering problem without seeing it from the perspective of sales and marketing, because as business people and as marketers, we come with preconceived notions. The whole thing I said, putting the price on the page. We guard the price as if it's some national security for some reason, you know what I mean? And I do get that there's a point to it. I do get that, we want them onto the sales call, but if we put the price on the freaking page, they might get sticker shock or whatever. But there are many different ways around this. First and foremost, maybe don't even do a sales call in the first place, right? So there are many different ways we can go about this, right? So it's a game of efficiency. I want you to see it as a game of efficiency, okay? And just like how with modern technology evolves, the human race has become more and more efficient over time, right? And so we are kind of thinking with that perspective of getting efficient, more and more efficient over time. Why aren't we doing that with our business when we have technology that has gotten more and more efficient over time? Why aren't we taking advantage of technology, right? And I mentioned this a lot, but using digital leverage. Why aren't we using as much digital leverage as we could, right? So as our business evolved, just like any other piece of technology, our business should evolve with it, right? I'll show you a video with MKBHD here, and he shows how computer chips have gotten so freaking efficient over time, right? And I kind of so let me play this video from MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee, and he's showing how stupidly small computer chips have gotten, how transistors have gotten, and how so much progress has been made in terms of efficiency, right? And so let me play the video first, and then we'll talk about
100 times
how
smaller.
We should apply this to our business as well.
All right, here we are. Now I'm the size of a single key on your keyboard. And of course, it wouldn't be a good scale video without a banana for scale, so got that too. Now, this is the size of a single transistor in 1948. This is pretty insane. We've clearly made a lot of progress in the last 75 years. You don't need me to tell you that. But this already puts it into perspective, how far we've come since a computer was the size of a room. Okay. Wow, welcome to the scale of micrometers. I am now 200 micrometers tall, which makes me about twice as tall as this human hair is thick. This is already the size of some of the tiniest stuff we're able to see using our own eyes. But yeah, a typical sheet of paper is about 100 micrometers thick. looks pretty tall to me.
I mean, that's
a glass screen protector too, thicker than a lot of people realize. But what's crazy is that first transistor I told you about is now the height of the tallest building in the world compared to me. So here next to me now is a transistor from 1968, 20 years later. Moore's law says that that's enough time for the number of transistors per chip to double 10 times, which means they've cut the size of a transistor in half 10 times. Now, computers in 1968 were still primarily used by governments and research labs, and were still the size of rooms and cost hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. This is still pre-internet. But they've already come this far since the earliest days of semiconductors. It's wild. All right, another 100x shrink. So now it's getting ridiculous. I'm now 2 micrometers tall. At this point, I'm actually literally invisible to the human eye, which kind of feels like a superpower. But I'll also need to be very careful because a human hair is like a cliff the size of a 25-story building. A single grain of rice at this scale would be the size of Mount Rainier. I could live comfortably inside a single groove of a vinyl record, and a 1 millimeter droplet of water would feel like a massive lake. This is the scale that bacteria live at. It's funny because physics also starts to behave kind of strangely at this scale. Air molecules, for example, are too large for these tiny lungs to breathe, and even the wavelength of visible light is as tall as I am, so my tiny eyes wouldn't exactly pick it all up. And the world would look kind of blurry and wavy. But somehow, by the 1980s, humans have found a way to consistently manufacture functional electronics at this size. We have to shrink down 100x yet again. Okay, 20 nanometers. I'm now 20 nanometers tall. So, an individual transistor from a brand new 2026 M5 MacBook Pro is about the size of a garage for me. Now, I'll note that this most likely isn't 100% accurate because Apple's not going to share their exact chip architecture with me, making a YouTube video. But still, the smallest parts of it are still smaller than me. And at this scale, you can see individual atoms, which are the size of marbles. Now, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but 3 nanometer transistors this size aren't just built like other objects the way you might be expecting. There's a pretty refined manufacturing process called photolithography. Basically, it's like developing a photo with light projected through a microscope, but onto atoms instead of film. And that is how you end up with billions of these inside a computer that you can sit on your lap. So yeah, the best way for my brain to really appreciate all of this has been to visualize this scale. From the tiniest 3 nanometer transistors we have in computers today, at the scale of DNA and individual atoms, all the way to the micrometer scale with the computers of the 2000s and 90s and 80s, humanity has been so motivated for so many years to get this stuff down to such a ridiculously small scale that it makes a grain of rice look like a massive object. And yet it keeps going and going, all the way back to the earliest transistors the size of a deck of cards. You know, something else I've realized though, even though we've seen now all of this scale and how tiny things can get, let's try this. The world's first electronic computer is often credited as the ENIAC. They finished it in 1946, and they had light bulb-sized vacuum tubes called triodes. And of course, that computer was the size of a whole room. But if we still made computers like this, with transistors that big, how big do you think the iPhone would need to be to fit the 19 billion transistors that it has today? Think about it. Maybe the size of a city block? Or what about the size of the entirety of Central Park? Keep in mind, you need to fit all these billions of transistors. Wouldn't it be crazy if we carry around the equivalent technology of a phone, the size of the city of Manhattan? Well, the reality is, these are all still too small. Your phone, with the technology from 80 years ago, would need to be the size of the state of New Jersey to fit them all. This progression of technology has given us a computer the size of a US state 270 miles long and shrunk it down to fit in our pockets. I'll even do you one better, okay? If a modern transistor was roughly the size of a Toyota Prius, then that iPhone that fits them all would be about the size of planet Earth. So hopefully that gives you an idea of just how ridiculously small individual transistors have gotten since the beginning of computers.
So I showed you that video because of how far we have progressed in terms of efficiency, right? And so we have all this great technology through the internet, through computers, and if we're not using it, if we're resorting to, like I mentioned it a lot, but using just human labor for, I don't know, it could be anything. It doesn't just have to be like the sales calls, like I preach a lot about, but it could be like anything, right? Then we're kind of going backwards in terms of efficiency, in terms of leverage, right? Because it's just a one-to-one kind of leverage, one input for one output. So the question is, why not use the advantages that technology gives us through computers, through infrastructure, through data centers, through servers all over the world, and being able to connect with people all over the world and use that instead, right? So business design and engineering, right? Using profits, client results, and freedom as these become like our main puzzle pieces, like what kind of world can we create? Like how can we reimagine like a coaching business? So you know how like Tesla, for example, when Tesla, like Elon Musk, they were designing a car, they kind of like reimagined what a car could be, right? Pretty much, pretty much started from scratch, like a blank canvas. Well, of course, they built on stuff that was already working, so like wheels and stuff, you know what I mean? But then, besides that, they started like asking questions like, okay, why do we need this? Like, what if we do it this way? Like, what if we put the battery right in the center so that, it has a really good center of gravity so it doesn't roll over as much, And they kind of like re-engineered and reimagined what a car could be. So we are doing that. It's very, very similar thing with our business here, okay? And so as we design our business, we become leverage and conversion engineers instead of marketers or business people, okay? Because, like I said, sometimes it limits our way of thinking and puts restrictions to our paradigm, okay? We think it's the only way without questioning it. We have like tunnel vision. See, the whole marketing thing coming to me, right? That's like funnels, too much marketing in my life, right? Tunnel vision, without testing it. But what if we start with a blank canvas, reimagine, re-engineer the way we think about a business, a coaching business or whatever have you, a business model, right? So how can we reimagine and build a world that's very efficient and very leveraged, okay? Leveraged in terms of helping get client results, of course, and leveraged in terms of profits, right? Maximizing profits with as little as, human labor or like the lower leverage stuff as we can. Okay, how do we do that, right? And that way, once we start to think like engineers, we remove all these that's a spelling mistake there, preconceived notions, make more profit, get client results, and of course efficiency at the center of it all, and build this beautifully efficient business. So if that is your jam, then please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the blueprints to imagining your high-ticket coaching in a totally different way. So please subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.